All right, everyone. Thanks for joining the final session of the second day of Google Guru's Summer 2014 Admin Training Week. It's been a great day so far and a great week with all of the presentations that we've had. We've got another awesome presentation lined up for today. Michael Spadaro from Profound Cloud, who I'll introduce in a little bit, is presenting a session on encouraging collaboration in Google Drive. So we're really excited about this. It's a great topic, and he's got a great presentation lined up. So before we get started, I'm just going to hop into my intro presentation really quick, and we'll go over a couple of housekeeping things, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So, just for those of you who are joining us for the first time, hopefully we're picking up some new viewers along the way, but most of you have been watching all week. My name's Andrew McGonigal. I manage the Google Guru website. And a little bit of background information on Google Guru. It's a completely free resource for Gmail and Google Apps, so whether you're an admin or an end user, there's more than 300 videos authored by industry experts like Michael Spadaro about Google Apps topics. So if you're a Google Apps admin, there's definitely something for you on Google Guru that you can learn about. And you can also pass along the website to your end users, and they can use it as a training resource and ongoing education about Google Apps. So like I mentioned, a lot of our videos are authored by industry experts. So if you would like to be one of those people who contributes to Google Guru, you can go to googleguru.com/contribute to learn more. We also have a daily newsletter that we distribute that is where we send out our latest tips and tricks about Google Apps, as well as the latest Google Apps news. So if you're interested in joining that, we also include with your, as a little incentive to sign up, we also include our Ultimate Guide to Google Apps. So you can learn more about that and sign up at googleguru.com/register. A little bit more information about Admin Training Week. This is, like I said, this is our last session of the second day. There's been a lot of Google Apps experts who have helped us out this week, and if you're interested in signing up for the rest of our sessions, there's 3 more tomorrow. You can go to admintrainingweek.com and click on the links and sign up for those sessions as well. And we have a couple of free giveaways that I'm going to talk about right here, the free t-shirt and free admin ebook, as well as the drawing for the Nexus 7. So to make sure you're eligible for that, please take a moment to fill out the form at googleguru.com/6ATW. So that's googleguru.com/6ATW, and Guru is spelled G-O-O-R-U. So please take a moment to fill out that form. You can fill that out as we go along. Like I said, that'll help us get the freebies and send them your way, as well as help us take a look at the audience and kind of see what kind of demographic we're dealing with. So with that being said, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Michael, and he's going to go ahead and start his presentation. Like I said, Michael is he's got a presentation on encouraging collaboration in Google Drive. Michael is the founder and CEO of Profound Cloud, a Google Apps reseller. So with that, Michael, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to you if you'd like to go ahead and get started.
Great, thanks, Andrew. First of all, just really excited to be here with all of you. I think Admin Training Week is a tremendous resource for you as a Google Apps admin, and just glad to be back on Google Guru and helping spread the knowledge about Google Apps and how to make the most of it. So as Andrew said, today's topic is encouraging collaboration with Google Drive. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I think it's important for IT admins to really focus on, not just getting things working correctly and secure, but also educating and teaching everyone throughout the organization how to make best use of the tools. I think it's one of the most important shifts we're seeing in the role of IT. It's really taking a strategic role in the business and helping everyone in the organization understand how to use their tools to the fullest. And I think nowhere is that more true than when you look at Google Drive and the impact it's having on Google Apps customers who are able to roll it out fully. Oftentimes what we see sort of a dichotomy between the way that IT departments view Google Drive and the way that IT administrators view Google Drive and the way that the rest of the organization does. So if you're like me, you feel all warm and fuzzy about Google Drive. You love it and you appreciate everything it can do for you and how easy it makes your life, how productive and mobile you can be, and all that good stuff. But what we often see is that maybe others, or perhaps even most of the rest of the organization, view it a little bit differently. So oftentimes what you see is kind of a love-hate relationship with Google Drive within the organization. And there's a number of reasons why that happens. I think, first and foremost, when we look at the way that Google Apps is deployed within an organization, oftentimes early on you're focusing on the core applications of Gmail, Contacts, and Calendar, which we think is totally the right thing to do. But as your usage of Google Apps evolves, I think it's important to begin to look strategically at Google Drive across the organization and really get users comfortable using it and make sure they're well educated and they understand what the product is for and what it can do for them. So why is it important? Why should we care whether or not the rest of the staff understands Google Drive and can collaborate effectively? Well, number one, a lot of IT departments are really interested in slimming down their on-premise infrastructure. They want less reliance on desktop software and all of the headaches and support requests that come along with maintaining that infrastructure and maintaining that desktop software and patching and updates and all of that stuff that's really detracting from more important duties. So that the IT department can really focus on strategic projects. And at the end of the day, the main goal being that IT can deliver greater value to the organization. It goes, like I said before, beyond just the day-to-day plumbing and wires and plugs, and really makes IT really core to the organization's strategy. So in order for that to happen, really, you want to make sure that as a Google Apps customer that Google Apps is really implemented in a very purposeful and a very useful way throughout the organization. And the key really, as far as I see it, is really in adoption. So a lot of times when we see organizations really not getting the best collaborative benefits out of Drive, it really goes back to the fact that it may not be well adopted, or it may not be adopted, again, in a very purposeful, clear way, maybe sort of adopted in kind of an ad hoc way, or users are sort of figuring out as they go. So what I'm here today to say is that to improve collaboration, you must improve Drive adoption. First of all, Google Drive is what we call here at Profound Cloud a show me product, which means that we can tell people about the benefits of Google Apps and Google Drive all day long. But it's really something that once a user has a little bit of education, they have their hands on it, they really begin to see it, much better than you could just simply explain it to them. We see that better collaboration comes organically with greater adoption. We find that the product itself, once people start to use it, they very much organically start to adopt a more collaborative way of working. So if you get better adoption and better education, you're going to see better collaboration. And then thirdly, it's important that the buy-in and that the adoption happens organization-wide. Like any collaborative tool, the more people who are using it, the more powerful it becomes. So getting that complete organization-wide adoption is very important. So today I'm going to talk about really our 3 keys to making sure that Google Drive gets well adopted throughout an organization. First for us, and probably the most important, is the education, making sure that users understand how to use the tools and what the tools can do for them. Secondly, we're going to talk about conversion and migration of files, documents, and spreadsheets, things like that, into Google Drive, and how to do that in such a way that really encourages collaboration. And then thirdly, we're going to talk about building the framework, about putting good IT framework in place so that Google Drive isn't sort of the Wild West of sharing among employees and doesn't turn into a big mess essentially very quickly and become counterproductive. So those are kind of the 3 key points we're going to get into today. So I'm going to start with education. And I think from our perspective, this is probably the most important success factor for implementing really any part of Google Apps throughout an organization, but especially Google Drive. And it's probably the least thought about in our experience among Google Apps customers, but the most critical and the most key performance indicator is how well and how thoroughly was training and education implemented throughout an organization. So I'm going to start by giving you some ideas for a suggested training curriculum. This is an example of training structures that we've used before. We tend to look at, at very minimum, splitting up users between an introductory training and an advanced training. So we find in most organizations you're going to have obviously varying levels of experience because Google Drive is also a consumer product. People have some experience in their personal lives, or if you're already a Google Apps customer, they may have already been using it sort of in an unsanctioned or just kind of ad hoc way. So you want to decide who's really most appropriate for introductory training and advanced training. And these are just some ideas for topics that you would want to cover in each. And when we do these sessions, we love to do them in person. So recommend definitely conducting these sessions in person. 60 to 90 minutes is about right. Beyond that, I do find that if people are really learning, it's going to get exhausting really quickly. Certainly, if you continue beyond that, kind of a workshop, a more hands-on, users actually using the product, doing exercises would certainly be useful beyond just the classroom teaching. So for us in the introductory training, it's about getting them creating and editing documents, and then quickly moving on to sharing, commenting, revision history, the types of capabilities that really make Google Drive different than the desktop apps. When users are ready for a more advanced training, you can cover more in-depth use of mobile apps, forms, incredibly useful, advanced organization of documents within Drive, things like that. I'm going to deep dive into a couple of these topics and point out specifically some of the most important topics and how we would suggest approaching them to really get users excited and get maximum buy-in from them. So one of the things you definitely want to spend a decent amount of time on with users in the organization is looking at version history, because this is actually one of the revision history we think is one of the areas where Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Drive in general are very strong with compared to Microsoft Office desktop apps. So for example, pointing out to users that you don't have to worry about whether you forgot to turn on track changes, and that's just a problem that we see a lot in, say, Microsoft Word. In Google Docs, obviously, it's not an issue. It's always on. Pointing out the fact that users can make edits and deletes with confidence, and they don't have to make multiple copies of the document over and over because they're afraid of losing a version or afraid of not being able to get back to where they were. Pointing out that the interface is easy and intuitive. If they're Mac users or if they have Macs at home, if they're used to Time Machine for backup, we sort of describe revision history in Google Apps as like Time Machine for doc sheets and slides, being able to go back to a particular point in time and see exactly what the document looked like. And then finally, just pointing out that revision history gives Google Apps users, Google Drive users a way to do away with sort of version confusion, multiple versions of the same file with different dates and codes and names at the end of them that tend to cause lots of confusions and sometimes lost data. Another area where we think you should spend a significant amount of your time in educating users on Drive collaboration is in commenting. Again, this is another area where Google Drive is very strong and it's going to present your users a lot more benefits than Microsoft, say, Word could. So for one example, the ability to get notification of comments when they're made is just a tremendous time saver. The ability to plus comment a new collaborator into a document. So if you're in a document already and you want to get someone's feedback, you don't have to leave a comment, then go to your email, and then email them the link, or in a Microsoft Word world, maybe email them the attachment of the document. Being able to sort of, right from within the document, bring someone new in is a huge time saver, and we find that to be a very compelling benefit why users want to switch to using Google Drive and away from Word. And the ability to reply to comments from email. I know if I'm out, somewhere on a client site, or if I'm in transit and I see a comment on a document, the fact that I can reply immediately from my email on my mobile saves me a lot of time. So these are features that you really want to point out because they're going to be features that people are going to get excited about. So it's what we do when we introduce organizations to Google Drive and Google Apps. And so I'd recommend you do the same. Same goes for forms. And I think with forms, it's really important to point out useful use cases within your organization, because a lot of times with forms, people get stuck in the idea of simply just surveys or customer surveys. And certainly employee and customer surveys are a very useful use case for forms. There's a lot of other things you can use forms for. You can use them for employee reviews. We use them here for time and expense tracking, which is a tremendous use for them. And just think creatively. Think about, is it who's coming to happy hour? Is it, someone has a quick idea and they want to poll the organization? You start to think creatively, you're going to find that there's use cases that people are essentially using email for or spreadsheets for, when a form would be more suitable. Definitely cover forms with your users, because they're oftentimes going to be the ones that think about what are the applications for their particular department or their particular job role. Now, don't forget that training and education is not a one-time process. We see a lot when organizations adopt Google Apps, there's a big training push that happens at the beginning. And that's great, and that's completely necessary. But in reality, organizations grow, they're organic, new employees come on board who may not have exposure to Google Apps. You have a product that's evolving constantly, so you want to make sure that not only are you providing kind of training at launch time, but you're also providing ongoing education, and that you have processes in place for providing ongoing education. So here's just some ideas that we've seen that we love that work really well. Obviously, totally easy is a self-service model. Andrew mentioned the Google Guru mailing list, which I'm a huge fan of. I mean, for us, it's an indispensable resource in what we do, and I would definitely recommend recommending that to your users as well, so that they can keep up to date with feature releases and things like that. Synergize, which I think there may have been a presentation by someone from Synergize, and I know they're one of the sponsors of the Admin Training Week. They have a fantastic product that I would definitely check out as well. We love that. It's an in-browser training tool that your users can use. It's another kind of self-service option. Also, if you work with a Google partner, Google partners generally, it's one of the things they can do for you is help provide training, either regular training sessions, ongoing training for your employees, or you can take these sort of the suggestions I gave earlier. You can develop your own internal curriculum to match specifically what would fit your organization, and put a process in place for doing that on a regular basis with your internal staff. So those are all good options. What's important is that you just keep the education process going, because, again, like I said before, it's the most underestimated, but probably the most critical success factor in any initiative within Google Apps. Okay, next I want to talk a little bit about conversion and migration of data, and what data it makes sense to migrate, whether to convert or not to convert, and how all of this impacts how your users will interact with Google Drive, and ultimately how effective they'll be in collaborating in Google Drive. So first, let's talk about which data to migrate. And when you're first getting started, if you haven't done a large, sort of Google Drive organization-wide pilot program, this is a good place to start. We tend to, if we're doing a kind of initial pilot, maybe the organization's considering doing a full-on switch away from a file server, away from file server infrastructure to entirely Google Drive, which some organizations are starting to do. Before you go that direction, it's always a good idea to do a little pilot program just to kind of get a sense for what might be the problems or pain points, so you can nip them in the bud before you do a full-on migration. So there's certain types of data that we found is just especially useful for collaborating or just having in Google Drive. The first would be archival data. And so if you have, say, a large archive of documents, and right now if they're sitting on file server infrastructure or Windows file server infrastructure, it may be slow to search, difficult to find things, maybe difficult to access those assets remotely. Those are a great example of documents that tend to work really well, we feel, in Google Drive. So sort of archival data that's static, not changing, but needs to be able to be quickly searched and referenced. I think key to understand here is that if you're going to upload an archive of legacy, what I'll call legacy file formats in terms of Microsoft Office, this is definitely an area where we would recommend not converting. The data doesn't need to be edited. you're going to keep the best fidelity by just uploading them and being able to view them as Word or Excel spreadsheets or whatever it might be right in Google Drive rather than the native formats. One of the increasing use cases that we're seeing for migrating data to Google Drive is static media, like multimedia. So certainly, we have a lot of clients in the creative field that have video, mass video storage needs, mass image storage needs, creative assets, things like that. And as you all know, that storage can get quite expensive quickly if you have those kinds of archives on site. And one of the great developments of the past few years has been the vastly decreasing cost of cloud storage. And Google's definitely been at the forefront of that. And with Google Drive storage being almost ridiculously inexpensive right now, it's really becoming compelling for large archives of video and images, provided that they're in formats that are supported by Google Drive, which most are, being uploaded there in Google Drive and really take advantage of the inexpensive storage, the fast search, and the accessibility from tablets and mobile devices everywhere. So that's another type of data I would definitely look for in your organization. Otherwise, you want to look for, aside from archival data, you want to look for files that have been that are touched frequently by many individuals, that travel through multiple departments, that get reviewed by leadership, whatever it might be. Highly collaborative documents will do well in Google Drive. And any hesitancy that users might have about using a new tool, I think will be quickly overwhelmed by the benefit that they're going to get from being able to have the document open in real time, to edit the document simultaneously, to be able to pull up that document from wherever they might be, or get notifications on comments. Whatever it is, you're going to really have a lot more success in adoption if you're going to be able to pick out those key documents and work with different departments in your organization to figure out what are those documents that are being opened frequently by many individuals, because you're really going to see the benefit. Even if you take that, even if your pilot is that one document, it may completely change the way that your organization views Google Drive and really open up their minds in terms of the possibilities of collaboration. And then lastly, files accessed on the go. So of course, because of the fantastic mobile apps that exist, you want to try and strip VPNs out of the picture. You want to try and strip out, log me in out of the picture, go to my PC, things like that, and really simplify it so that if you have a sales team and they're out in the field and they need quick access to pricing tools or sales assets, that those might be excellent groups of files to start a Google Drive pilot around. So this is all about finding the key benefits so that when you present this to your leadership, when you present this to other departments, that they're going to be as excited as you are about Google Drive. So finding the right data for your pilot is really key. So you want to really encourage users to work in the native Drive formats. Okay, we don't recommend Drive as a replacement for something like Dropbox and just using the Drive sync tool instead of Dropbox. Although that has its advantages because it lets you deploy a sync tool that's sort of within the approved IT ecosystem. We like to really encourage the use of the native formats. Of course, as soon as you're not using those native formats and you're syncing things or syncing Word documents, you're losing 90% of the collaborative features that make Google Drive so wonderful. So this is an area where, again, if you have the proper education in place, this is going to be much easier. You want to really resist that temptation to sort of cling to the familiar, cling to Microsoft Word, and the training is going to help you do that. So we really recommend trying to maintain that 100% pure Google Drive goodness, as we say. And another way you can do that is to supplement Google Drive with other Drive-integrated cloud products. So for example, if there are Visio documents, flowcharts, process maps, layouts, things like that 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 certain departments need access to, look at whether something like Lucidchart would help that. If you have Microsoft project files happening and you need Gantt charting, look at something like Smartsheet that integrates with Google Drive and it helps keep your users in that cloud ecosystem. It keeps them in Drive and away from those nasty desktop applications. And also, you want to set the example, right? So at the end of the day, you have maybe some amount of control over, what your users can use, but ultimately they have to buy in. One of the great ways to get them to buy in is to, as an IT department, to set the example so that they can see you using it, so that they can see the benefits that you're getting from it, so that they can be ultimately very excited about it. So think about your IT workflows, whether it's change requests, whether it's using a Google site even for an IT knowledge base paired with Google Drive, or if you have simple support workflows. I know Google Apps Script was covered earlier today. You look on the Google Apps Script developer site, one of the examples they have there is a simple app script for a help desk support workflow with confirmation emails and things like that. I understand a lot of organizations, I know certainly ours, have more complex support workflows, but for simpler support workflows, something like Google Forms and AppScript can work well for that. So really having IT set the example for the rest of the organization is going to help you. So next I want to talk about building the framework for collaboration in Google Drive. And this is important because a lot of times we see organizations have Google Drive implemented in a very sort of ad hoc way, right? Users have sort of figured it out on their own. They share documents in sort of an ad hoc way with whoever needs access to them. And that can get you so far, but it doesn't get us to a place where the entire organization is kind of clicking on all cylinders and collaborating efficiently. So we're going to give you some suggestions here. So as a starter, definitely look to deploy the Drive offline extension, and this is something that is even easier to do if you use Chrome for Business, which is the MSI packaged version of Chrome that Google puts out that will let you centrally administer the ability to roll out extensions like the Google Drive Sync offline extension. So definitely enable Drive offline. Drive offline, I think, has gotten much better over the past couple of years, and I know for me today, I don't even think about it, and I've had multiple times where I've been in airports and client sites without access, and Drive offline has worked beautifully for me. So I definitely recommend rolling that out to your users, especially the mobile ones, on laptops and things like that. One interesting thing that we've been doing a lot is pairing sites in Drive. So thinking about sites as a portal with which to access all of the great information that's within Drive. So for example, if you have an operations manual that is maybe one long document, or perhaps it's a series of documents spread across a series of folders, that's really not an intuitive way to interact with that information. So think about whether or not a Google site would pull that together and sort of make it more organized. And you want to try and embed some Drive functionality directly into sites to make them sort of interactive and useful. And also, when you build a site like this, you want to make sure you create dashboards, kind of home pages that are indispensable. So that if there's critical information that staff needs access to, it could be simple. It could be key contact numbers for key customers or vendors, employee contact lists. We have sort of dashboard information that pulls from our customer support form that lets our team know how they're doing, quick links to our clients' websites and things like that. Put something there so it becomes the site that you use really becomes an active part of their day-to-day life, and they're more likely to use it and rely upon it. I'll show you a quick example. So for example, this is just a very simple example here on our, we call it our ops site. It is our operations manual site. We talk about purchasing and shippings. Our staff goes here when they need to know how to handle a certain purchasing item. And what we do is, instead of just putting instructions and step-by-step, and here's what you do, instead of saying, go submit the expense form, we have the expense form embedded right alongside the content of the site. So again, it seems simple, but one of the impacts of this is that when someone goes to make a purchase, they don't have to go searching Drive for the form or find the bookmark to it or the email that went out with the announcement. It's organized in sort of a logical way so that the same place where they're going to figure out how to do what they need to do, the form is right there. So this is kind of what I mean behind taking sort of the abstraction of Drive and this collection of files and thinking about if there's some way that you can organize it in a logical way within a site, almost making like an intranet portal that gets people to where they need to go in Drive. We found it to be an incredibly useful technique, and really one of the strengths of the platform is the ability to do this. Now, one of the areas of Google Drive that doesn't get a lot of love from Google Apps users, and quite frankly, it doesn't get a lot of love from Google lately either, is the template gallery. And if you've used the template gallery, you know that it's sort of a little bit obscured within Google Drive. There's actually, they took away from the create button the ability to create from a template. Now there's actually an extension that brings back that link that just does that we use, because we use the template gallery extensively here. And for us, it's helpful for a number of reasons. But first and foremost, what you want to look at with the Google Drive template gallery is you want to look at starting a style guide template. So for us, we have a template that has, it has our letterhead on it. It has all of the heading styles. It's got a table style. It's got different subheadings and then some sample paragraph text. And so when we need to start a new document of some sort, a proposal or anything else, we can start right from that template. And a lot of times, what that'll do is when users open up a Google Doc and they see just a blank sheet with Arial, 10-point or 12-point or whatever it is, then they sort of make the assumption that this is a very basic application and you really can't do nice formatting. In reality, if you've worked with it and you've really played around with some of the formatting and now the vast amount of fonts that are now available in Google Drive and all of the image cropping and the formatting options that are coming in, you know that really you can create really nice looking documents in Google Drive, in Google Docs. So a style guide template can really help that because it gives the users some place to start from. So you're not starting with just a blank slate, they're starting with a nicely formatted document with headers and things like that, and then they can fill it in. Another area where we use the template gallery a lot is in conjunction with documents that are app script enabled. So a common example for us is an email merge spreadsheet. We had an email merge app script, which is out there. There's a lot of these kind of scripts out there in the add-ons gallery. It's already got the app script embedded in it. So what's really nice about that is that if someone here needs to do a mail merge, they don't have to worry about creating a spreadsheet and then go like kind of copying and pasting the script in from someone else or loading the add-on on or whatever. If the app script's already in there, it's built into the template, and they can start just a fresh mail merge from there. So if you have kind of like documents that you're starting to enable with app script, complicated things like that, those are great for the template gallery. And then you want to look at customizing Drive, moving beyond just the basic functionality and ways to really identify different departmental needs and satisfy those. So definitely, encourage your users to explore Drive add-ons and talk to you about Drive add-ons that might be helpful for them. That was a recent addition in the past couple months into Drive. It's in the add-ons menu, so definitely check that out. I know AppScript was discussed earlier, and using AppScript to sort of automate different pieces of the puzzle, different achieve functionality that you can't achieve just straight out of the box is a fantastic way to customize it and make it vastly more useful, make it a vastly more useful tool to your organization. And then looking at third-party Drive apps. So you may use other applications which integrate already with Google Drive. So look especially at your CRM if you're using Salesforce, or if you're using something like Insightly that already integrates with Google Drive. We use EchoSign for our client contracts and things like that, for e-signatures. And for us, simply the ability to, from EchoSign, pull a contract right out of Drive without having to do any kind of downloading, or converting, or re-uploading is powerful. And more of the cloud applications that your organization is using already has that ability. So make sure that you really highlight that for your users, that you take advantage of that. And then another thing you really want to do is try and get outside parties involved. Collaboration is not just internal, right? Your users are also collaborating with key customers, they're collaborating with vendors. So this is something you really want to do, is not just encourage collaboration within the organization. Think about who are the key customers and vendors that people in different departments work with a lot. and how can you encourage Google Apps collaboration between your company and other companies. So one idea you could do is you could find out which of those key customers and vendors has gone Google like you have, and distribute a list. Quick tip here for doing that, of course, you can use an MX record lookup at mxtoolbox.com, put in their domain. You know, if you see those Google MX records pop up, that's definitely going to clue you in that they're using Google Apps. Another fancy trick there is you can just go to mail.google.com/a, put in the other company's domain name. If you get an error page, they're probably not using Google Apps. If you do get an error page, if you don't get an error page, they're probably using Google Apps. If you do get an error, then they're probably not using Google Apps. So you know, just that simple, distributing that list to say, hey, you know, a memo to the staff to say if you're collaborating with these other companies, you know, understand that you might be able to collaborate with them in Drive. Of course, for non-apps customers, you can use sharing with a private link. So definitely teach your users that. And then also think about using Drive for public-facing materials. So if you have sales materials, marketing materials, one thing that's great to do is if you put those in Drive, then distribute the link to your sales, marketing teams. They can use that in their emails, their blasts, and things like that. That can be very helpful. Now, I put all this in the context. Of course, there's security concerns behind this, so every organization is going to have unique kind of security concerns and policies. So remember that in all of these cases, you're going to want to, if you're using Drive heavily, you're going to want to enforce some sharing policies. So something like Flash Panel is a great tool to do that. So definitely put that all through the lens of security. Look at the needs of your company and figure out what type of sharing policies would be appropriate. Obviously, you want to enable that collaboration and all the benefits you get from it, but you want to keep things secure as well. So something I talked about on a previous admin training session was using Drive as a file server. I'm not really going to go too much into it right now. I do encourage you to go back and watch another session. But I'm going to just touch on a high level on some of these topics because this also really ties in directly to providing a good structure. Because if you don't really have a good structure and a good IT framework in place, collaboration is really not going to take place naturally. So a couple of techniques we talk about when we talk about laying out a Google Drive file structure that you're going to share across the organization. One of the first topics we talked about was creating sort of a root Drive folder that everything would live in, and also creating a flat folder structure behind it. So again, I'm not going to go too deep into it because you can go back and watch the other webinar, find that on googleguru.com. But here you see an example of sort of a traditional file server infrastructure. It's sort of a deeper kind of hierarchy, but it's still all underneath a root folder. We do the same thing in Google Drive. We create a root folder that's owned by an admin, and then we create a nice kind of flatter folder structure beyond that. One of the key reasons why we create that flat folder structure is for search optimization. So because the search in Google Drive is so good, you want to search optimize your Google Drive implementation to make it as useful as possible for the users. All right, so quick example here, sales-reports. When I search the term reports without the flat structure, without the specific naming, I only get search results that say reports. They don't tell me the path to the whole file. So this is where sort of specific naming and flatter structure comes into play. So same holds true for file names too. Encouraging specific file naming among your users is going to help them search for the things they need better because they're not browsing as much anymore, they're searching. You want to search optimize file names and make them as specific as possible. And then also one of the other things we talk about is using role-based permissions within the framework that you're setting up for Google Drive. So again, in the sort of ad hoc model that we see a lot, someone creates a folder, Phyllis, shares it with Sally, who shares it with Wendy, and Wendy shares it with Jim. That's great, I think, for very small organizations, but really it's not scalable, and it creates a lot of problems with different people leave, and it's hard for IT to really track who has access to what, track compliance concerns, security concerns, things like that. So we recommend role-based permissioning, so giving permissions to particular groups rather than giving permissions to particular individuals. Okay, so to review some of the things we talked about today, think of education as really the foundation of what's going to help your organization be successful when it comes to collaborating in Google Drive. Think about the topics on the earlier slide and all of those specific topics that are going to help get your users excited, motivated to dive in to Google Drive, love it as much as you will. You know, in converting and migrating, it's really all about finding those right documents, those right assets that you're going to get the most bang for your buck, and then building the framework, you know, bringing in your IT knowledge, bringing in your IT expertise, and really putting in place a structure that's going to support collaboration for your organization in the long term. And one thing to realize is that you don't have to do it alone. There's a lot of great Google Apps partners out there who can help you do all of these things, right? So if you're not using one right now, you can check out Google Enterprise Partner Search, google.com/a/partner search. Again, these are organizations that have been through the training, they've been through rolling out Drive, they deal with this day in and day out, and they experience what it's like to really sell Google Apps around an organization and gain buy-in. So they can really be your allies, and I encourage you to connect with one if you're not connected with one already. Quick bit, since I didn't really introduce myself in the beginning, I want to let you know a little bit about Profound Cloud. As Andrew said, we are a Google Apps Premier Partner. We're located here in New York City, so if you're in the neighborhood, of course, we'd love to meet you and talk to you, take you out for a drink. And really, a lot of our emphasis is on post-migration success, helping organizations move beyond Gmail, get the most out of their Google Apps implementation. And one of the things that we do that's a bit unique is we provide Google Apps support for your entire organization. So we work not just with admins, but we work with end users to help them get the most out of Google Apps as well on a day-to-day basis. Lastly, I'd like to mention, you know, some of the topics I've talked about, especially in the building the framework and laying out your Google Drive. We're releasing a Google Drive deployment guide for how to move from a file server's infrastructure to Google Drive. It sort of covers more in depth some of the material that we covered in our last webinar with the Guru training. So if you're interested in that, or if you have any questions that we're not able to get to here today, please feel free to email me at michael@profoundcloud.com, and we'll make sure you're on the list to get that when it's released next month. So with that, Andrew, I guess I will toss it back over to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Michael. Great presentation. It looks like we've got some really good questions, and I think you were able to touch on a few of them along the way. I saw we actually had a question about the Google Drive as a company file server or file share, so that was great that you were able to get to that. You also talked about Google Drive add-ons a little bit, and I think one person mentioned especially for, or specifically for Google Apps for Education users, add-ons can be a really good selling point, especially for teachers, because you know, there's add-ons available that can, you know, take a lot of work out of your hands. You can automatically grade assignments and send back results to your students. You can organize your classes easily and distribute assignments. So add-ons, you know, are great for all different types of organizations, but specifically Google Apps for Education. There's some great ones out there. Flubaroo, Doctopus. These are all used to be app scripts, now available as add-ons. So there's some great stuff there. One question that I think, Michael, you might want to get to. It's a pretty general question, but what's your personal best practice for migrating a large amount of users' data to Google Drive in an organized manner so that after the fact they're easily able to access files like they did in whatever their legacy system? I know you're not going to have time to talk about the entire process, but maybe if you want to just give like a general overview of how of that process.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as I said in my presentation, a lot of it first and foremost starts with training, because I can tell you if you just sort of, you know, send out an announcement and say, hey, this next weekend you're migrating your data, and then they show up and you're trying to figure out how to use Google Drive, it's not going to go over well for you. So, you know, certainly for us, any kind of migration process always starts with education. When it comes to the actual process of migrating the data, it really depends on the organization's the size, the comfort level, the type of data is really critical to understand, making a decision. Like I said, whether you're migrating sort of an archive of data or whether you're migrating very active data, definitely changes the picture. In terms of just from a broad perspective, I think pilots are useful if they're done thoughtfully and well. And I think that's where it goes back to choosing the right data to pilot. And I think when we see it not working, it's because maybe either they chose low risk data where they felt like, oh, let's use this data as a pilot because it's safe and it's not all that important, so if it doesn't work, it won't be a big deal. But actually, it's sort of counterintuitive. That actually sets you up for failure. So you want to choose really critical, really important, active data, but you want to make sure you do it carefully. And then, as I said before, one of the big questions I think is always to convert or not to convert. And I think, we always kind of err on the side of not converting and then letting users, teaching them how to convert. Or if there's certain documents that we just know are very important, need to be converted, we'll convert them on upload. We would very rarely sort of mass convert just because you don't know what the ramifications are. And really, all the benefits to converting is if the documents are going to need to be edited. And then getting the data from point A to point B, good old drag and drop actually doesn't work too bad if you don't have too much data. We've used the Google Drive Sync tool, obviously, to load data in to Google Drive. So there's a number of different ways you can do that. It just depends upon the data. And then lastly, you want to make sure before you migrate data that you have that shell in place that's organized, the permissions are set up, so that, again, it's really planned out and done in a thoughtful way. That kind of goes back to the last part of what I was talking about with laying out the role-based permissions, determining the most appropriate folder structure, and things like that.
Great, lots of good advice there. Thanks a lot, Michael. Let's see, a couple more questions here. One, what's the best way to back up your Google Drive data right now? Google Vault works only on emails. A couple of our sponsors for Admin Training Week could definitely help you out there. So I would take a look at Spanning and Backupify and evaluate both of them equally and make your choice there. Let's see what else we have here. Another question about Google Drive. How secure is Google Drive? Our office is worried that sensitive material in Google Drive could be hacked. I guess it looks like maybe you missed our previous session today. We had actually had a session earlier on Google Drive security. So if you want to go back and take a look at that event page, there's a recording there where we address a lot of those concerns. I would say to address that specific concern directly, I would maybe talk about how Google's servers have a lot more security layers than almost any sort of server that you could think of, especially an on-premise server. The chances of somebody breaking in to your office and hacking your local server versus breaking into Google servers that are distributed across several different continents are fairly low. So that's something to keep in mind, and you can learn a lot more from our session earlier today. There's a lot of great information there. Another question on tagged comments in Drive files, tagging someone with with their email address. I think Michael mentioned it, but all you need to do is just use a plus sign and followed by their email address, and it'll send them an email notification with a comment in the Google Drive file. So that's a really great feature that we love to use all the time. And I think that's all the questions that we can get to for right now before we start to wrap it up. I want to say thank you again to Michael for joining us. It was another great presentation, and hope everybody learned a lot from him.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to, once again, I'll go back into our presentation really quickly and kind of wrap things up and get to you guys about that Nexus 7 here. So let's see if I can find that presentation. All right, like I said, thanks again, Michael. Great presentation, lots of awesome information about Google Drive collaboration. Really important topic for administrators. So one last time before we wrap up the presentation today, if you missed it the first time around, please go to googleguru.com/6ATW. That's googleguru.com/6ATW. And so not ATW6, it's 6ATW. I know some people are having a little bit of trouble with that, maybe trying to guess the URL before I put it up. So this will allow us to distribute your free T-shirt and the Admin Training Week ebook. There are some questions about when the ebook will go out. The ebook is going to be a compilation of all of the week's presentations along with some other really helpful information. So obviously we're going to need to wait until after Admin Training Week is over to compile that all together, and then we will send that your way afterwards. And also the Nexus 7, which we're going to go ahead and draw for now. So before we go ahead and do that, I want to thank our sponsors for Admin Training Week, specifically Uber Conference, Spanning, and Sightly, Synergize, FlashPanel, Cloud Sherpas, Backupify, and Virtru. They were a huge help this week in helping to put on Admin Training Week. And the rest of our sponsors were a huge help as well. Profound Cloud, and you just heard from Michael Spadaro from Profound Cloud. They were a huge help, and along with the rest of our Admin Training Week sponsors. So thank you to all of you. And before we say goodbye, I want to say go ahead and show our winner here for our 6th Nexus 7 of the week. And so the winner for this session is Lori Otto. So congratulations, Lori. Hopefully you stuck with us through the entire presentation. We will be in touch about sending you that Nexus 7. So congrats. For all of you who have not yet had a chance to win the Nexus 7, you have 3 more chances tomorrow. We'll be giving away one of those after every session. So please stay tuned. Please join us again tomorrow for our sessions. Those include an 11 a.m. session with Vincent Paquette, who's the VP of Product at Uber Conference. Uber Conference is a really great tool. It's just recently become a plugin for Google Hangouts. So Vincent's going to show us how we can, as admins, can make use of Google Plus and Hangouts in our domain, as well as showing us some really cool integration that Uber Conference has that adds a lot of features that may be missing with Hangouts. So that's at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. At 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll have a session on Chromebook management from David Huff, the CTO at Cloud Sherpas. David's done a lot of presentations on Chromebook management, so he's one of the foremost experts on that. So definitely look forward to hearing from him. And then lastly, the session that I'm personally really excited about is our Google Apps Roundtable at 5 o'clock Eastern Time. So we're going to be joined by 4 different people: Justin Gale of BRP, who you heard from on Tuesday; Karen Huffman of the National Geographic Society. Karen's in charge of SaaS products and cloud applications there. Kevin A. McGrail of USAID, a very large organization that just recently went Google Apps. And then Ronald Gerald, who is at Virginia Tech and has been there since the very beginning when they first adopted Google Apps and migrated there. So we're going to hear from 4 people at pretty prominent organizations that have gone Google and hear about their stories and what they like about Google, what's been most impactful to their organization, maybe what Google can be doing a little bit better. And it'll be a pretty informal conversation. We'll try and just talk a lot about Google Apps and get to some really good topics. So I hope to see all of you guys there for our sessions tomorrow, 11, 2 o'clock, and 5. So hope to see you there, and thanks again for joining us.